Before I get started, just a little bit about me. So I'm currently a second-year dental student, meaning that I was in your shoes not too long ago at all, and I remember very well what it was like to study for and take the DAT. So I took the DAT just a couple of years ago, and the tips and advice that I'm going to share with you today are what helped me score a 27 academic average, 23 total science, and 23 perceptual ability on the DAT. And let me say that when I first started studying for this test, I did not think at all that these scores would be possible, but I truly believe that with the right mindset, the right resources, the right support, and the right study routine, you really can achieve the scores that you're looking for, and scores that are really going to help set your dental school application apart. So let's get into it. So my first piece of advice for you is going to be investing in the right resources. And if you're at the beginning of your DAT journey, this is going to be your first step, and it is a very important step. So here's the step where you're going to be investing in your future. You're going to be setting yourself up with the resources that you need to be successful. And for me, having an online platform was hugely helpful. An online platform can be accessed pretty much from any device at any time. It's updated more frequently to reflect changes in the DAT, and it's just so much easier than lugging around a set of heavy books or juggling a bunch of different resources. So Crack the DAT is an online platform, and it has everything you need to study for the DAT all in one place. So with Crack the DAT, you get access to notes, to study guides, to detailed video explanations, to practice tests that look exactly like the real DAT, so that when you sit down on test day, you won't be surprised by anything you see. It'll just feel like another practice test. Crack the DAT also has explanations, they have PAT generators, so really everything that you need to take the test all in one place. It really makes the studying process so much more streamlined and efficient. So my next piece of advice to you is to take a diagnostic test to figure out your starting point. So I recommend this to everyone. I think a diagnostic test is the best way to get a sense of your starting point and to sort of start figuring out which subjects are stronger for you and which subjects are going to take a little bit more work. It's also a really good way to get a sense of the types of questions that you're going to see on the DAT. But I definitely encourage you not to worry too much about your predicted score. So diagnostic tests are short, and you also take them before you've done any studying. So I promise you that as you study over the course of several weeks or months, your scores will improve dramatically. So don't worry too much about the predicted score. And if it makes you feel any better, the first time I took a perceptual ability test diagnostic, I was told that my predicted score was going to be a 12 out of a possible 30 points. So when I took this diagnostic, I was completely overwhelmed. I had never seen these types of questions before. I had no strategies in mind for how to approach these questions, and I was just completely lost. But after studying for the PAT over several months and using PAT generators and taking practice tests and learning the strategies, I was able to improve my score substantially. So the next step is going to be actually studying for the DAT. So I recommend starting by doing a review of content as needed. So how much time you spend in this learning/reviewing phase is definitely going to vary from person to person. It really depends on how fresh a lot of this content is in your mind. It depends on when you last took a course on the subjects of the DAT, etc. So for me, I took biology my freshman year of college, at the very beginning of college, and by the time I took the DAT, I was late into my junior year of college. So a lot of that content was just not fresh in my mind anymore. So I spent a lot more of my content review on biology. You can also use the results of your diagnostic test to sort of inform this phase. So say you took the diagnostic test and you realized, wow, organic chemistry is just not fresh in my mind anymore. I need to focus more on organic chemistry. Then you can sort of tailor your learning phase to include more organic chemistry. So likely you won't need to review all of the content on the DAT. A lot of it probably you'll just know how to do or will be more recently studied, so you won't need to spend too much time reviewing it. But perfectly okay to just spend some time at the beginning of your studying, really making sure that you know the content that's going to be tested on this exam. Also, during this phase, you're going to be using a lot of different resources. So you might be watching videos, you might be reading study guides, you might be taking notes. Really what type of resources you focus on does depend on what type of learner you are. So for example, if you're a more visual learner, you might rely more on videos. But I recommend using a variety of resources no matter what type of learner you are. So once you're part of the way through your learning/reviewing phase, it's time to start incorporating practice tests into your DAT studying. And by practice tests here, I mean tests of individual subjects. So for example, a natural science test or a quantitative reasoning test. The full-length tests that cover all the different subjects will come a little bit later in your studying. If you'd like, you can also take tests that are even more specific. So Crack the DAT offers biology mini tests that test subjects such as biochemistry and cell biology. So if you've just finished your content review for one of those subjects, you can then go ahead and take a mini test to make sure that you really understood what you studied. So practice tests are, in my opinion, hands down the best way to prepare yourself for the DAT, to learn what the test is actually going to look like on test day, and also to work on your speed in addition to your accuracy, because practice tests are timed. However, I will say that if you're starting out with a certain subject, especially with PAT, and you feel that you need a little bit more time to complete a test, that is definitely okay. Crack the DAT gives you the option to alter the amount of time that you're given on each practice test. So for me, when I started studying for PAT, like I said, I was very overwhelmed, and if I had just allowed myself the 1 hour to complete the test, I wouldn't even be able to get through half the questions because I was just spending so long on each question trying to understand it. So at the beginning, if you need to give yourself a little bit of extra time just to make sure that you can actually see and do your best to figure out each question, that's okay. So my final tip is to incorporate full-length DAT practice tests into your studying, ideally closer to test day. So I will be honest, full-length tests are definitely pretty grueling. You'll need to set aside several hours to actually take the test, ideally with few breaks in between because you want to simulate the real DAT as closely as possible. And then you'll need to set aside a couple more hours later to review your mistakes. But as grueling as they are, I really believe that practice tests are so important. They're really what's going to make you feel prepared on test day because you'll know that you've done this before. So when I was studying for the DAT, I took around 2 or 3 full-length practice tests. So it is a balance. You don't want to burn yourself out. You don't need to take tons of practice tests, but you do want to get at least a couple of tests in because that's what's going to make you feel really prepared on test day. So I know how daunting and overwhelming this test can feel because I was in your shoes just a couple of years ago, but I truly believe that anyone can do amazingly on this test and that anyone can get the scores that they're hoping for with the right resources and the right mindset and the right preparation. And doing well in this test really does make a difference in your application, and it's just going to bring you one step closer to getting into the dental schools of your dreams. So I hope this advice was helpful for you, and I hope you're able to take it and use it and incorporate it into your own DAT studying.